So before getting started on the project, you're going to need a couple tools to help you out. You can see I've got those things listed out here. You'll need a heat source of some sort, typically a heat gun, or if you're proficient with a torch, you can use that. You can see I've got a white grease pencil here just for making marks to help you align panels of vinyl if you need to. A couple different micro squeegees, a couple different knives. I'm using 30-degree snap-off blades in a plastic body from NT Cutter and a stainless steel body. That's an Olfa body blade or a body knife. Also a tape measure, wrap glove, always handy. We've got a couple squeegees. This one's a more firm one. This one's a soft one. I'm just using monkey strip buffers on both sides. And this brown stuff on the opposite side is what's called Teflon tape or glass tape. It just helps your hard edge of your squeegee slide along the vinyl a little bit easier. It's also handy to have some sort of a toolkit if you are able to get one. Not entirely necessary, it just makes it easy for having your tools right next to you. You want to have some sort of cleaner using isopropyl alcohol, 30% water, 7% alcohol for cleaning. What we've done so far is we've cleaned the truck, wiped it down really well with isopropyl alcohol so far. You can also see that we've done some prep work in terms of removing the mirrors. We've removed badges as well. Handles are recessed, so we don't need to take those out, which will be nice. But there's a couple things that you want to do in preparation, and this is the cleaner that we typically use for doing that. You also want to probably consider clay bar in your car. Of course, have it washed first, clay bar, and then use the isopropyl alcohol solution as far as getting rid of any residue, oils and dirt, things like that that may be left from that. And of course, last but not least, you're going to need your vinyl. This is the VVivid large camo pattern vinyl. This is a 75-foot roll, which should be sufficient for wrapping this entire truck. So with that, you can get started on the project. All right, guys, so we're gonna get started on the tailgate here. You can see that we've got a piece cut out to size, and you wanna have enough going up and down and left and right. Give yourself probably about an inch extra on each side here. This tailgate should be fairly easy. It's relatively flat. The handle you can easily wrap around. And again, this is taken out and that's there, and you can wrap the emblem over there is wrapped around. My friend Chris here is going to be helping us out as far as wrapping it. This is his truck. And so with this one, what we'll do is, again, just wrap it. It's pretty flat and it should be super simple. We're going to just go ahead and peel the whole thing and start applying it. Peel the entire backing paper off, and then you'll want to basically work together as a team to make sure that you're about centered. You have equal coverage over the top and bottom, left and right. And you can see that what we did is we laid this down. We did lightly glass it out. I was pulling this wing out, Chris was pulling that wing out a little bit as well. And now we're setting up the rest of the vinyl to start laying it down. Okay, so to apply this, we know that the handle's right here. We're going to start in the center, work our way out, around, and encapsulate the handle part here. All right, ready? When you're squeegeeing, make sure that you do angled strokes and then overlapping strokes to ensure that you catch any bubbles that may form. This does have air egress built into it. And if you do get a bubble, you can press it out. Also, if you do get wrinkles, you can probably just use the hard edge of your squeegee and press those out as well. You can see, hopefully you can see this here, that the air egress actually does work really well on this. I'm just using my finger to push out these encapsulated bubbles right here. For the buffers, again, these are just monkey strip buffers. And you can hear as we're squeegeeing, what you're hearing, that zippering sound, is actually the texture of the vinyl itself, which creates kind of this holographic sheen to it. It's not a gloss or satin coating on it. It's actually a textured vinyl which refracts light at different angles to create this effect. This is actually a fairly low tack vinyl, as you can see. So it doesn't grab super hard. The ambient temperature in the shop right now is about 72 to 75 degrees. So it's pretty ideal as far as temperature goes. It is repositionable. I've laid this part down so I can pull it up. Again, it is fairly low tack, and again, even if I lay this down, it does pull up fairly easily as compared to other brands such as 3M, which when you press it down, which is a pressure sensitive, pressure activated adhesive, you'll adhere a lot harder with this. VVivid is a heat activated adhesive, so when you hit this with heat, the adhesive itself will grab a bit harder than it is right now, just laying it down cold. So right now, laying it down cold, there's absolutely no stretch on it, no tension. And so there's no risk of the vinyl failing later on down the road. You reach a recessed area here, you want to make sure that you lift and tuck it in and feed it into the recessed area. And then once you reach the bottom of the recess, you want to push all the bubbles out because you don't want anything failing on the inside of the recess here, which may be under tension if you just bridge it in. Continue wrapping down once you reach the other crust. I recommend running your finger down here to get any trapped air over the hard edge of the top and bottom side of the recesses. And then taking your squeegee or your finger and making sure that inside the recess itself there are no trapped air bubbles. You can use a heat gun or a torch as well. And that will tell you if there's any air trapped in there, because it'll cause the air to expand behind it, creating a bubble, and you'll see that right away. To address this, we're going to add a little bit of heat to help soften up the vinyl. And what we'll do is we're going to encapsulate the handle itself so that we can then work our way around and towards it. Where's the top part here? Need a little bit more heat to get that softened. And by encapsulating, what we're going to do is give it a little bit of heat and create a bubble without any wrinkles in it that you can then work the opposite sides out nice and smoothly. Which then makes it easier to trim out whatever high point object you're trying to encapsulate. Such a heat there. As you can see, this does take the heat very well, softens it up, makes the vinyl a little bit more compliant. Be careful when you apply heat, because then you also can risk overstretching the vinyl, because it does become much more stretchable once it is warmed up. Once we've got everything set to go, laid down, you can see this is, for all intents and purposes, fully wrapped. It just needs to be trimmed out. And so you can use your squeegee, hard edges to define cut lines. Where the tailgate meets the fender, you can bridge it across and create a seam which you can cut on the opposite side, which would give you about 1 centimeter to 3/4 of a centimeter that you can wrap over. Or you can split it right down the middle, since this will be an empty cut, since behind here is just the edge of the door. It doesn't go flat and straight back. All right, so for trimming, what we're going to do here is trim out this Ford emblem. And what Chris has done is he's fully encapsulated the emblem itself, and he's set it up nice and smooth all the way around. Now he's taken his blade and just basically using the hard line where the vinyl meets the emblem itself as a cut line guide. Snap the new blade, of course, so that the blade is as sharp as it could possibly be. And he's cutting with little to no pressure so that he doesn't scratch the emblem underneath or cut too far past the vinyl. You notice that he is taking his time, trying to make sure he does a good job, and that everything cuts nice and smooth and cleanly as well. Again, there's a lot of setup, not a lot of setup, but there is some setup to make sure that when you do this, it's easier for you to do and it comes out with good results. So now that he's cut all the way through, he's going to go ahead and start tucking in the vinyl that has now been released. That will tuck into the bottom edges that kind of dip in and around the emblem itself. Notice that for this, he's using the hard edge of his squeegee, which is a little bit thinner. So, and he can also help maneuver and manipulate the vinyl to get in, not only the recess, but kind of a little bit behind the vinyl, the emblem itself as well. This will ensure full coverage of the emblem with no paint from the original body of the truck showing through. And once he's all set, he'll take his micro squeegee, get in there a little bit better than what the regular squeegee could do, since the micro squeegee does have a thinner edge to it. Be careful when you're doing this, because depending on how sharp the blade of your micro squeegee might be, it could potentially push and cut right through the vinyl earlier than you want to, which might result in some of the original paint showing behind the vinyl. All right, and so we're going to leave it like this so that the camouflage pattern continues over the emblem. But if you did want your emblem to show, because it was cut and released, you can then just peel off the emblem itself. All right, so for the next part here, Chris and I are going to be trimming out the handle, the top, and then these here. So on the sides, what we'll do is what's called an empty cut. And basically you're going to put there's the door itself is fairly thin, and you can actually cut sort of behind the door itself, which gives you enough coverage to wrap around the edge of the in this case, a tailgate edge. And so you can take your blade, kind of just find the edge of your tailgate in this case, poke behind it, kind of at a 45, and the blade's pointing in at a 45 towards the vehicle itself. And basically the side of your blade is going to follow the back inside of, in this case, a tailgate. As you're cutting, add a little bit of tension by holding a piece of cutting. Make sure that you snap off the new blade so it's nice and sharp and cuts through without any problems or issues. And continue all the way down to the length of whatever you are cutting. I'm going to finish off the top side here. All right. And with that, you can then just use your thumb to get it initially around the top edge of the edge. And then you can finish rounding everything off with your thumb or a squeegee. Just like this. And that gives you, by doing that type of a cut, gives you just enough to wrap around the edges so it looks like it's fully covered. Let's see, so let's cut out the top part next. So I'm going to actually cut a little bit here so that this part can lay up the side here. Basically just created a relief cut on the top right there. Round this off. Make sure that you define your lines first with the squeegee so that you have a good line cut. And then you can start cutting. This bed cap kind of goes up a little bit, so you can cut sort of underneath the cap itself. So just to take the tip of your blade, snap it up and underneath the bed cap itself, and that should give you just a hair of extra vinyl that you can then tuck underneath the bottom of this bed cap here. Again, the side of my blade is pushing up against the side of the bed cap, and the blade itself is not touching the body of this tailgate itself. It is getting a little bit tighter here towards the end piece here, so be careful, take your time, so that you make sure you don't cut anything that you don't want to be cut. Finishing off the edges here on this side. Now I'm going to tuck this here, just to make sure everything's nice and tight. I'm going to finish cutting off this edge part right here. And once that's cut, I recommend taking your squeegee or micro squeegee and then tucking in the rest to make sure that it's laid down nicely and that there's no open gaps in the vinyl that water can get into and behind and in the vinyl. Okay. I haven't done it yet, but once you do something like that, once you finish your cuts, I always recommend hitting it with a little bit of heat. Make sure everything is sealed down. And that will also help you find any trapped air or air bubbles that you may have missed in this process. All right, so 2 more cuts left on this particular piece here. The handle, which what we'll do is I'll snap a new blade tip. And since you can see we've got this outlined as best as we can, there's a hard line of the edge of the handle framing itself. So I'm going to take the end tip of this just over the edge like this and slice using the side of my blade against the top side of this handle, following it all the way down, being careful. If you do reach any resistance, do not fight it. Stop for a second, see what it is that might be giving you resistance, and then continue on, basically following the edge of the handle. Change your body position as required so that you can get, so it's not awkward in cutting it and you don't make a mistake. And that you can also see, I always recommend that you cut towards yourself instead of away. That way you, in my opinion, you have better control of your blade. So I'm going to continue across the top where I started. And I'm using my other hand to help guide and stabilize my blade a little bit better. Changing my body position, following the contour of the handle. Double checking to see where I'm at, to see where I ended my other cut. Continuing to follow the handle. I should be there. Peel off the handle. Like that. I'm going to hit it with just a little bit of heat. You can hear it's cool, a little bit cool in here, so it's a little bit, the vinyl's a little bit crunchier. When vinyl does get cool, it is a little bit more brittle. So you can see I used the torch to add some heat, but I moved it quickly because all I want to do is warm up the vinyl. I'm not trying to shrink it or stretch it. And so I'm going to hit the corner areas first, get those tucked in, and then work the material towards the flats. Just like that. And because I traced the outside of here, when I had it basically bridged and outlined, it left me with enough material all the way around to ensure full coverage. Now just take the rest of that, tuck that in. The rest of this, tuck this in. And switch to a softer squeegee so I can maneuver it a little bit better. Add a touch of heat here to help lay it down. just making sure that I've got it laid down all the way and around the handle itself. All right, so that handle has been wrapped. You need to get in there a little better, use micro squeegees to help get in there. There's a variety of different kinds you can buy on Amazon or any vinyl wrap distributor. I'll put some links in the description to get some of the tools that are used in this project as well. All right, the last thing to cut would be the bottom piece here. So I'll go ahead and let Chris take care of that. You're gonna do a flush cut, or what are you gonna do, empty?
Yep.
Flush?
Yep.
So he's gonna do a flush cut, which is basically taking, if this is the bottom edge of your door, he's gonna put the blade straight up against the bottom and just cut straight across. Take off the camera here off the tripod so we can see what's going on. And you can see Chris just basically has the side of his blade pushed up against the bottom of his tailgate, and he's cutting straight across, creating a nice clean flush cut. When he's done with that, what he'll do is take his finger and make sure everything is laid down smoothly and well, add a little bit of heat to help out. It'll help him find any bubbles that may have been left as well. And his tailgate is almost done. All right, guys, we're totally finished trimming this tailgate out, and so this is the tailgate fully wrapped.